Hey, how you doing? This is Adam Post, publisher of more than 1,000 comic books and marketing expert covering Johns Hopkins University Humiliated retracts disturbing definition of privilege, in which they demonize pretty much everybody. Let's get into the story. Before we do, please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up. I really appreciate you guys. Coming from the Daily Mail, furious Johns Hopkins University publishes diversity hit list, where its DEI chief claims all whites, all males, Christians, able-bodied people, and English speakers are privileged. If you fit any of those categories, it doesn't have to be more than one. She thinks there's something very wrong with you. Johns Hopkins University has sparked outrage. In a letter that was now posted to Twitter by End Wokeness, great Twitter account, definitely make sure you follow this guy, that was written by Chief Diversity Officer Sharita Hill Golden, was part of the monthly Diversity Digest. A furious hospital employee shared the memo with End Wokeness on Twitter. In it, Dr. Hill explains that privilege is the diversity word of the month. So you get a word of the month, just like if you used to watch that kids show Sesame Street, you might get a number of the day, a word of the day. She's got a word of the month. To explain who the phrase applies to, she offered a list. It reads, privilege is characteristically invisible to people who have it. So you don't get to decide if you're privileged or not. She decides. You can't see it. There's something wrong with you, and you need to accept that because she says so. Quote, white people, able-bodied people, heterosexuals, cisgender people. Cisgender is a slur, of course. Males, Christians, middle or owning class people, middle-aged people, and English-speaking people. You speak English? She's got a problem with that. And you all fit the bill according to Golden. Quote, people in dominant groups often believe they have earned their privileges they enjoy, or that everyone could have access to these privileges if only they worked to earn them. Which of course is the way that Western civilization works. It's why millions and millions of illegal aliens risk their lives to get to Western civilizations, like in the United States, like in Europe, because they want the opportunity for a better life. She goes on to say, in fact, privileges are unearned and are granted to people in the dominant groups, whether they want those privileges or not, and regardless of their stated intent. Among those to condemn her remarks was Elon Musk, who tweeted, this must end. Donald Trump Jr. said, quote, the rot and racism in higher education goes so much further. Harvard, MIT, and Penn, it has taken over virtually every institution and needs to end now. After the post went viral on Twitter, Golden issued an apology to staff this morning. So it was one day after End Wokeness sent this tweet out that she was forced to send a response, retracting and disavowing what she said. Quote, the newsletter included a definition of the word privilege, which, upon reflection, I deeply regret. The intent of the newsletter is to inform and support an inclusive community at Hopkins. But the language of this definition clearly did not meet that goal. In fact, because it was overly simplistic and poorly worded, it had the opposite effect. I retract and disavow the definition I shared, and I am sorry. She should have to step down. Enough already with this lady, and this isn't even the first time. I'll get into the second story with her in just a minute. In a statement to dailymail.com, a Johns Hopkins University spokesperson said, quote, the January edition of the monthly newsletter from the Johns Hopkins Medicine Office of Diversity, Inclusion, and Health Equity used language that contradicts the values of Johns Hopkins in an institution. Dr. Sharita Golden, Johns Hopkins Medicine's Chief Diversity Officer, has sincerely acknowledged this mistake and retracted the language used in the message. Other Twitter users slammed the letter too. In response, conservative activists are trashing the institution online. Quote, Johns Hopkins is throwing away their legacy of being a respected and honored institution over the diversity, equity, and inclusion movement that history will list as the thing that brought down this venerable institution for promoting racism and discrimination and too many phobias to mention, wrote one person. Quote, I fall in every category here, so I must be the privileged world champion, joked another user. Quote, I would love the word privilege to just get sucked into a vortex, never to be seen or uttered again, said another. It's this redefining of words, whether it's redefining what a woman is, redefining what a man is, redefining racism, pride, even the word violence, and now privilege. To associate it with supporting the progressive agenda, it's really out of control. This past October, Johns Hopkins made headlines when it renamed one of its programs the Carolyn Donovan Professorship in English Literature due to the Donovan's family owning of slaves in the 19th century. According to a 2020 announcement from the school, founder Johns Hopkins too was a slave owner despite being a Quaker, a group who were largely abolitionist. An abolitionist is a person who favors the abolition of a practice or institution, especially capital punishment or slavery. Quote, weighing the prime legacy of any name is a subjective and imprecise process, but in taking up this work, the university seeks to reconcile history with the values it strives to protect and uphold, according to the vice chair of the university's board of trustees, Sarah O'Hagan, who said that in a statement at that time. But just renaming programs is not the only thing this woman's crazy office did. From the Daily Mail, trust the science? Prestigious Johns Hopkins University erases women from woke new inclusive language guide that describes lesbians as non-men attracted to non-men, but still refers to male gays as men. How can they possibly justify this? We do have a glossary, but we have to go into the story. The Baltimore-based university is known for its excellence in education and research, particularly in the field of medicine, and recognized as one of the top medical institutions in the world. Yet the establishment appears to fall well short when it comes to basic terminology involving the sexes in the university's LGBT glossary. The extensive glossary is filled with definitions that aim to be inclusive, reflecting an evolving understanding of gender and sexual identity. But the current definition of lesbian describes it as a non-man attracted to a non-man. Many feminists were particularly infuriated that the word woman was vanquished, while their gay male counterparts were still referred to as men. I don't know what you would refer to the men as, but given the chance, I'm sure Sharita Golden could come up with something. The glossary is emblematic of the current struggle being faced by supporters of transgender rights that claim that the word women is being erased in favor of woke terms such as birthing people and menstruators. Biological women who are also lesbians have also complained of being bullied and shamed if they refuse to have sex with transgender women who still have penises, with Johns Hopkins' new guide likely to inflame that argument further. I can't explain the logic of that one. Naturally, you know where I stand on the subject. Supporters say the controversial terms are inclusive of transgender men and non-binary people, but critics say they effectively erase another historically oppressed minority, women, at the expense of a tiny minority. This is all a dehumanization agenda, and the more dehumanization you see, the less they value human life. It gets worse and worse, and we do have to stop this. Some organizations have reached a compromise by publishing guides using phrases like women and birthing people, but Johns Hopkins has made no such concessions. Many progressives have taken to using terms including pregnant people and even uterus havers. The university's definition has been greenlighted by Paula Nera, the program director of LGBT equity and education at the university, who is also transgender. Nera chairs the sexual orientation and gender identity work group at the university. The entire department Nera works in is overseen by Shira Hill Golden, that's this lady, who has the label of Chief Diversity Officer. Here's what their diversity office put out. Lesbian, a non-man attracted to non-men, while past definitions refer to lesbian as a woman who is emotionally, romantically, and or sexually attracted to other women. This updated definition includes non-binary people who may also identify with the label. A gay man, a man who is emotionally, romantically, sexually, affectionately, or relationally attracted to other men, or who identifies as a member of the gay community. At times, gay is used to refer to all people, regardless of gender, who have their primary sexual or romantic attractions to people of the same gender. Gay is an adjective, not a noun, as in he is a gay man. Now, as much as this seems reasonable in the world of woke, Johns Hopkins really did have to pull their ridiculous lesbian definition. From NBC News, Johns Hopkins pulls lesbian definition after uproar over the use of non-men instead of women. They just thought they'd slip that right by. The university's online glossary of LGBT terms and identities defined the word lesbian as a non-man attracted to non-men before it was taken down. Johns Hopkins University removed an online glossary of LGBT terms and identities this week after its definition of the word lesbian used the term non-men to refer to women and some non-binary people and fueled an online uproar. This was back in June 2023. Screenshots of the glossary sparked an online firestorm in recent days, with many women, including some lesbians, calling the definition misogynistic and noting that the definition for gay men did not use similar language such as non-women. Well, of course not. That would be just silly. These people make no sense. J.K. Rowling, who has widely been accused of being transphobic for years, also chimed in on the matter, tweeting to her 14 million followers, quote, "Man, no definition needed. Non-man, formerly known as woman. A being definable only by a reference to the male," she wrote on Twitter. "An absence of vacuum where there's no manness." So in June, it's this craziness with the lesbians, and they're forced to retract it. And in January, it's this craziness with identifying anyone and everyone they possibly can as privileged to demonize them and belittle them. Males, whites, Christians, middle-aged people, able-bodied people, middle and owning class, English-speaking people. And the following day, they're forced to retract it. If this is what people like Dr. Sharita Hill really think of their fellow citizens, and they're willing to put it out publicly and put it in writing, what do you think they actually think, but they're not comfortable saying out loud just yet? This can only get worse, and this has to stop. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments below. Always love to see your ideas. Please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications, give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you again soon with another video. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.